Hello and welcome back to the channel. In this video I will cover some more of Philip K. Dick's Exegesis. This book is an endless treasure trove to people who are interested in big questions such as, is there a God? What happens when we die? Are we alone in the universe? And other metaphysical questions. Being a science fiction writer, Dick, of course, also touches on topics such as artificial intelligence, mind control, identity manipulation, and other mind-bending and fringe concepts. I will cover more of the mystical angle and the consciousness-related aspects regarding the exegesis, but since artificial intelligence is so much in our faces these days, I find myself thinking more and more about the blurring lines between humans and computers. I feel we will have to find a way to legislate our coexistence with hybrid life forms sooner than we would probably like. And that brings us right back to other philosophical questions, such as, what if us humans are an AI of a more advanced civilization? It is entirely possible. What makes intelligence artificial? What is life? How do we define it? And all that makes books like the Exegesis such a worthwhile read. I would like to start off with an insight that Philip K. Dick had about his own thinking and writing. On page 392 of the Exegesis, he looks back on his published work and realizes that producing his own work was his long journey towards enlightenment. He describes the process as a continuous shedding of all kinds of illusions. Over the years, Dick came to see all kinds of concepts and phenomena as illusionary in nature. And along with that insight, he saw the concept of his ego, his selfhood, to vanish as well. Let's look at a short quote regarding this process. Search for truth of that which is truly real probably culminated in the visionary experience he had in 1974, which this book, the Exegesis, is about. The journey described in this quote is one of philosophical and existential inquiry. It is a process of stripping away preconceived notions and seeking a deeper, more fundamental understanding of existence. And if we take the exegesis as an indicator of his methodology, it becomes apparent that Philip K. Dick took his unconscious as seriously as his conscious mind. You could also refer to the conscious as the conceptual mind and the unconscious as the unconceptual mind. What I mean is that, for instance, he writes down his dreams, his intuitions. He pays attention to synchronicities and he takes sudden insights and downloads seriously. He then holds his experiences against ancient philosophy or religious systems. So his unconscious and conscious mind are in constant dialogue, and this is how he arrives at a synthesis. What the unconscious mind produces and what the conscious mind observes are fertilizing each other. This seems a very fruitful and productive way of being, when you're seeking truth, when you want to look behind the curtain, when you are on what we typically call the spiritual path. And there is at least one other very famous example of someone undergoing and documenting this kind of process in a book. The person I'm referring to was the world-renowned psychiatrist and founder of analytical psychology, Carl Gustav Jung. The book, called The Red Book, is a personal journal of notes and drawings he created from 1913 to 1930. A link to the book is in the description box. Jung began creating the Red Book during a period of deep introspection and self-analysis, which he referred to as his confrontation with the unconscious. This intense and visionary experience led him to explore the depths of his own psyche, delving into the realms of dreams, fantasies, and symbolic images. Both works, Dick's Exegesis and Carl Jung's Red Book, were published long after their deaths. It is documented that the decision of the estates not to publish those works for such a long time were in part made because of concerns about how the public, critics, or scholars would receive these works. Publishing such unconventional and deeply personal material was seen as a risk to the author's legacy. In Dick's case of the Exegesis, it was published in 2011, more than 30 years after his death in 1982. For Carl Gustav Jung's Red Book, it was published in 2009, almost 50 years after his death in 1961. We touched on the idea that the universe is a hologram in one of the previous episodes. In this context, Dick concludes that in a holographic universe, what we call God must be immanent, meaning contained within this universe as well. And if we are a part of the holographic universe, by definition, all of us must have access to the totality of the universe. He calls this the macrocosm-microcosm theory. Dick keeps referring to the term anamnesis, which means remembering. So enlightenment in his mind is also a kind of remembering of who you really are and who you are in the greater scheme of things. The relationship described here is one of mutual constitution. When one component of the macrocosm, meaning when a human being remembers its identity and perceptually sees reality as it actually is, the macrocosm is being evolved as well. So every person is a microform of the total mind, co-creating it by their very existence. There seems to be a higher order of abstraction, which Dick refers to as the informational aspect of reality. From the vantage point of such a higher order of abstraction, linear time loses its significance. You can think of it as looking at our world from a higher dimension. If you're in our dimension, if you are in physical form, you experience linear time as causality. You know there was a past, you are in the present, and you can anticipate a future. It's as if you are a dot moving on a line of time. In a holographic or higher dimensional world, however, there is a continuity between all time and space. And in such a world, information is more real than anything we might call substance. Dick believes that there is a basis of reality which is pure information. Throughout the exegesis, Dick keeps referring to the actual experience of the vision that he had in 1974. Touched upon a similar concept in an earlier part of this series. The idea that at a certain level and in some fashion we all are part of one unified field. I personally believe that this kind of level of reality no longer is a dualist one of me versus not me. Also, I don't think that we should conceive of the field as an entity, but rather as beingness. Whether you regard information to be its fundamental aspect, or consciousness for that matter, the point is that they are to be viewed as aspects of ultimate reality rather than its essence. It's like the flavor of ultimate reality is pure consciousness. If you uphold a dualistic view when thinking about the absolute, you must, like Dick, still think in terms of distinct entities of yourself on the one hand, and a somehow superior being on the other, and the two are able to enter some kind of relationship. So in a sense, Dick is able to touch or access the idea of the absolute or ultimate reality, but he still conceives of it in dualistic terms. It might make more sense to think of ourselves as embodied mind streams. A lot, if not all, that we experience, including time, space, causality, seems to hinge on being in a body. When that falls away, when the body is discontinued, the mind stream has the option to either merge back into the ground of being or to return to an embodied state. This, by the way, is not my invention, but a central part of the Tibetan Buddhist teachings on death, dying, and the afterlife. These teachings are summarized in the Bardo Tödol, which is a Tibetan Buddhist text that is commonly known in the West as the Tibetan Book of the Dead. Again, I'll put a link in the description box. The book is a guide that is intended to be read to a person who has recently died, and it is believed to assist them in navigating the various stages of the intermediate state between death and rebirth. It describes the experiences that a consciousness goes through after death, providing instructions and guidance on how to recognize and navigate these experiences. It emphasizes the impermanence of life and the importance of spiritual awareness during the transition from one life to the next, or rather from one state of being to the other. Philip K. Dick refers to the Bardo Tödol in the Exegesis. He actually studied it. Own words, he refers to the realization of the clear light of non-conceptual mind, which of course is a significant aspect of the path to enlightenment in all Buddhist traditions. The clear light is a pristine, luminous awareness that becomes apparent to practitioners during deep states of meditation or at the moment of death. Philip K. wrestles with himself throughout the exegesis. In trying to understand and make sense of his vision, he races through all available religions and philosophical systems, it seems. He'll create a theory only to dismiss it and posit the contrary a couple of pages later. This self-negating dialectic approaches the absurd at times, leaving him hopeless at others. People who simply dismiss Dick as crazy or drugged up lunatic, I would like to submit that a lunatic hardly doubts himself and his conclusions as radically as Dick did. He does explicitly consider his own insanity at times and explores the possibility that what he experienced was simply a psychotic break. There is a sort of inner dialogue that he documents and which I'm going to quote just part of. It's written as a Q&A that he engages in with himself, being his own worst critic. So whatever you like to reproach Dick with, you can exclude lack of self-inquiry and self-criticism. Hardly the character traits you will find in a truly mad person. Thinking or writing about metaphysical topics, things we cannot yet measure or never will be able to measure in scientific terms, you always come upon paradoxes. One of the problems we have when wanting to verbalize or conceptualize absolute truth is that words and concepts fail us. Philip K. Dick attests to that, even though he was a very gifted thinker and writer. But it is more than the inability to put the absolute truth in words and concepts. It is that the absolute truth seems profoundly paradoxical. The greatest paradox being that the truth has been right in your face all along, throughout the whole time you have been searching for it. That which you seek is not in a faraway place, it is right here. The ephemeral and transcendent turns out to be quite real and even tangible. You'd think you have to accomplish great skills to find it, but it finds you the moment you let go. There is a beautiful quote to that effect. It is a bit longer and contains some Greek terms, but please don't be discouraged. It is such a treasure. Wrapping up, I want to leave you with a personal thought. It's probably more of a principle. In my personal view, no matter what spiritual tradition you follow or what philosophy you ascribe to, the way to measure its utility is to take a good hard look in the mirror at times and ask yourself, has this made me a better person? Because no matter if our world is just a simulation, a game, or if we're just an experiment in someone else's petri dish, what seems essential to me is the question, do you as an individual contribute to the whole of creation in a life-affirming way? Is what you put out into this world a positive contribution? Does it help anyone? Does it spark imagination? Is it creative? That's it for today. I hope this was helpful. You can find links to all the referenced books in the description box below, and I'll see you in my next video.